Ohio, where a grand jury has declined to indict a white police officer who shot and killed a 22-year-old African-American man named John Crawford. On August 5th, 4 days before the unarmed black teenager Michael Brown was fatally shot by police in a case that ignited the country, John Crawford walked into a Wal Mart in Beaver Creek, Ohio. According to his girlfriend, the two went to the store to buy supplies for making s'mores at a cookout. As he walked around the store talking on his cell phone, Crawford picked up an unloaded BB air rifle that was lying on a shelf.
Surveillance footage released Wednesday following the grand jury's decision shows what happened next. As Crawford stands in the pet supplies aisle talking on a cell phone, a customer calls 911. In this footage, the 911 call has been synced with the surveillance footage.
Beaver Creek 911, where's your emergency?
I'm at the Beaver Creek Wal Mart. There's a gentleman walking around with a gun in the store.
Is he got it pulled out?
Yeah, he's like pointing at people.
What does he look like?
He's a black male, probably about 6 foot tall.
Okay. What's he wearing?
Blue shirt, blue pants.
While the caller, Ronald Ritchie, claims Crawford is pointing the gun at people, the surveillance footage shows he's pointing the gun at the ground, occasionally swinging it and prodding supplies on a shelf in front of him. Ritchie later acknowledged to The Guardian, quote, "At no point did he shoulder the rifle and point it at somebody."
Minutes into the call, Ritchie tells a dispatcher Crawford is pointing the gun at two children. The surveillance footage shows that while a woman and two children appear at the end of the aisle, Crawford never actually points the gun at them.
He's a black male, black shirt and blue jeans.
Yeah.
Does he have a hat or anything on?
No, he's got like an afro.
An afro? Okay. Beaver Creek, did you get that? I got it. Has an afro.
Right here, please.
Gotcha. What's your name again, sir?
My name is Ronald Ritchie. He just pointed at like two children.
Just over a minute later, police appear in the footage. In the span of about a second, police can be heard shouting at Crawford and shooting him twice. Crawford is facing to the side with the BB gun swinging loosely toward the ground. As the officers advance, he appears to bend his knees.
Sir, what's going on?
Gunshots in the store. Which corner of the store? Police officers are here. They're on the scene.
Crawford collapses and police move to restrain him. He was taken to a hospital but died of his wounds. Lacey Johnson, the mother of Crawford's two young children, says she was on the phone with him and heard him tell police it's not real. She put the call on speakerphone, and John Crawford's father, who was with Johnson at the time, said he heard his son gasping for air.
Talk about your reaction to the grand jury not finding the police officers guilty in the shooting.
Well, first, thank you all for having me on the show. When many of us were present while they were making the announcement, and to be honest, none of us were shocked. For weeks, the family has been asking for the Department of Justice to open their own investigation because the writing was on the wall that the grand jury would return with no indictment. The last time that Beaver Creek, Ohio was in national news, they were fighting the Regional Transit Authority from putting a bus stop near their mall that would allow residents from Dayton to access the mall, people who work there, people who shop there. We already know how Greene County jurors vote. There's just this good old boys network and this many conflicts of interest which we understood made it unlikely that an indictment would be found. So we weren't surprised, but we were very saddened. We were very saddened that the jury was unable to indict these officers, unable to push this case forward for a jury trial, saddened that the prosecutor didn't really attempt to prosecute this officer, but instead seemed to be justifying the decisions, trying to figure out how to show that there was no one at fault. But while being saddened, we understand that we must push forward, and it only strengthens our resolve to fight for justice for John, his family, and to fight for true systemic change that will make sure that there are fewer and fewer John Crawfords.
And James Hayes, why did it take so long for this video to come out after the grand jury decision? Clearly, everyone knew that there had to be surveillance cameras inside the Wal Mart that might have captured some of these events.
That's something we've been asking for since a week after John was killed. Release the tape. Our first round of actions, we had an action in Cleveland. We had a march in Beaver Creek where about 200 protesters went to the Beaver Creek police station. And that round of protests culminated in action at our Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWine's office. The day after that, Mike DeWine allowed the family and the lawyers to see about 6 minutes of the footage from the Wal Mart security cameras. Afterwards, the family said our son was murdered, and we were pushing for a public release, but we were told that it could take up to 2 to 3 years for that tape to be released when we initially went and spoke with representatives from Mike DeWine's office. It's clear that they knew if they released the tape before the jury made its decision, that the public was going to come to a decision before them, and everyone who's seen the tape, it's resonating across the country right now. People are seeing that John Crawford had absolutely no time to respond to the officers. They entered the store at 8:25, and by 8:27, John Crawford was on the ground with 2 bullets inside of his body, and I honestly think that they knew that they were going to not try to really indict this officer, and they didn't want the public to indict him before the grand jury had an opportunity to make their decision.
I mean, again, you could see how serious this was, because he gets out of his car, puts his regular service piece in the trunk, gets out an assault rifle. The other officer shows up, does the same thing, puts on his tactical vest, gets his assault rifle. So it's very obvious from what they did. They thought this was the real deal. And then they're beating feet in there. They're not just walking around. You can see as they're coming in. I mean, it looks like a combat picture. And that's what these guys were taught. That's how they're taught to approach this kind of thing.
Special Prosecutor Mark Piepmeyer acknowledged the police response might have been a little bit over the top. James Hayes, who is Special Prosecutor Piepmeyer?
Well, in Ohio, we know Mark Piepmeyer as the prosecutor who failed to bring justice in the Timothy Thomas trial, which before the events in Ferguson was the last time there was an uprising in an American city around race relations. We know him as the prosecutor who sent the inmates in the Lucasville prison uprising to death row. When he was appointed, it was clear that this was not a good sign for what would happen in Greene County, and it was more fuel to the fire in terms of trying to bring the Department of Justice in to open their own investigation.